You don't see the world with your eyes. You see it with your brain. Just think about that for a second. Your thoughts, your emotions, your memories, your beliefs, all of your past experiences, it's all a construction happening entirely inside of a black box. And that black box is your skull. We really like to think we're experiencing this objective outside world, but honestly, we're kind of just experiencing a hallucination built by our own internal wiring.
Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at the actual neuroscience of self-transformation. Now I know, if our brain is just a black box constructing reality based on old programming, that might sound a little scary at first. But trust me, it's actually the most empowering thing you can realize. Because of neuroplasticity, you can rewrite that programming. Think of it like street art. You don't have to just live with the old graffiti on the walls of your mind. You're the one holding the spray paint. You can literally paint a new reality.
So here's our game plan for today. 1. Inside the black box. 2. The default mode network. 3. Shifting your identity. 4. Hacking your habits. And 5. Regulating the nervous system. Consider this your ultimate blueprint for taking total control of the machine that builds your everyday experience.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Inside the Black Box, Hallucinating Reality.
I want to completely challenge your basic assumptions about what is objectively real right now. Prepare to have your mind blown. Color isn't real. Seriously, it doesn't exist as a physical property of reality. What's actually out there are simply different wavelengths of light. Your brain entirely made up the experience of color so you could decipher between those wavelengths. Researchers actually went into the rainforest to study this with monkeys. They found that monkeys with different genetics can look at the exact same fruit with the exact same light bouncing off of it and perceive entirely different shades of color. It's wild.
And it gets even crazier when you look at our other senses. Scientists gave mice this really bitter tea. Naturally, they wouldn't touch it. But without even touching their taste buds, researchers rewired the taste receptor in the brain. Boom! Suddenly, the mice drank the bitter tea like it was sweet sugar water. It's the exact same reason cilantro tastes amazing to some of us and like literal soap to others. It's all just internal pathways. Now, here's where it gets profound. The kitten experiment. Researchers raised newborn kittens in complete darkness, except for a few hours a day, where they were placed in these cylinders painted with only horizontal black and white stripes. After their critical development period, they put them in a normal room. Guys, they were completely blind to vertical objects. You could wave a vertical rod right in front of their faces, no reaction. They just walked straight into table legs.
So the crucial point we really need to take away from this is, where are you the kitten in your own life? What vertical stripes are you completely blind to just because of your past programming? Maybe it's a massive career leap. Maybe it's a truly healthy, secure relationship. Or, hey, maybe it's financial abundance. If you grew up constantly hearing money doesn't grow on trees, your brain is quite literally not wired to perceive the infinite ways abundance is sitting right in front of you. You literally cannot see the vertical stripes.
Moving right along to Section 2. The default mode network. The engine of ego.
This is the neurological powerhouse that generates your specific, personal hallucination of reality. The default mode network, or DMN, is this highly complex network in your brain that basically holds the entire story of who you are, your self-concept, your labels, your ego, the whole shebang. It lights up when your mind is just wandering, when you're daydreaming, or when you slip into those unconscious default behaviors. And this brilliantly illustrates why transformative experiences are so incredibly powerful. Clinical studies show that deep states of meditation and even psychedelics drastically turn down the activity in this network. When the volume of that ego story is dialed down, people emerge as completely new, unburdened versions of themselves.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the contrast in how these states activate. You've got the task-positive network, which lights up when you're intensely focused on executing a specific action. You're in the zone. But then you have the default mode network. Let's say you're trying to build a new life, but you get tired or unmotivated or super stressed. You fall right out of that conscious task-positive state and default immediately back into the DMN. If you're reacting to life under stress, you are acting entirely based on the old, outdated story of who you are.
That perfectly tees up Section 3, Shifting Your Identity. Your identity is your destiny.
Neurologically speaking, your identity is your destiny. You simply cannot outperform the internal story you hold about yourself. The entire gap between you and your desires is just your identity. Take neuroscience expert Emily McDonald, for example. She kept putting off writing her book. She'd sit down to write, and suddenly she'd feel this massive urge to do the dishes or go film a video. Why? Because her internal identity was a scientist and content creator, not an author.
Her brain was basically trying to motivate her to do tasks that aligned with her old identity. But the second she intentionally shifted that and declared, "I am an author, and this is how an author moves," the resistance just vanished. She even had a client who constantly reverted to junk food under stress. They didn't fix it with a crazy diet. They fixed it by having him deeply identify with a new story. "I'm simply not that person anymore." And it actually worked.
But we really have to be careful about where our drive is actually coming from. We have harmonious passion, which is driven by love. It acts as a part of who you are, but not your whole identity. Then we have obsessive passion. This is driven by fear, desperation, and pressure. This is where your entire self-worth is totally entangled in the outcome. And operating from that state of desperation, it's a biological trap. It literally triggers the amygdala, the fear center of your brain, which gives you massive tunnel vision. You're just scanning for threats to keep yourself safe, which means you are literally blinding yourself to the abundant opportunities and alternate paths that are sitting right in front of you.
All right, Section 4, Hacking Your Habits, Rewriting the Code.
So how do we actually put this into practice? Habits are basically just heavily ingrained neural pathways, and we have to intentionally overwrite that code. Here is the ultimate framework for hacking a habit. 1. The cue. 2. Creating space. 3. The new response. And 4. The reward. Emily shared this fascinating story of breaking a really stubborn vaping habit using this exact method. First, she identified her cue, usually stress or deep work. Next, she created space by keeping her vape physically out of reach. She'd literally toss it under the passenger seat of her car so she'd have a delayed response. Third, she completely replaced the behavior. When a craving hit during that extra space she created, she took a deep breath instead. To absolutely supercharge this, she used a form of aversive therapy. If she did cave and hit the vape, she intentionally sat with how physically disgusting she felt. She was training her brain to associate the habit with revulsion, not relief. Because remember, your brain is the ultimate association machine. You can't just hit delete on old pathways, you have to overwrite them. Now, if you want to build a good habit, use habit stacking. Attach a new habit to an existing one, like meditating immediately after your morning workout. And finally, reward yourself. I know it sounds too simple, but treats actively boost dopamine, and dopamine drives the very neuroplasticity your brain desperately needs to wire in that new behavior. And finally, Section 5, Regulating the Nervous System, the ultimate flex. Honestly, in our hyperstimulated, constantly distracted modern world, a regulated nervous system is the absolute ultimate measure of success. People often think of discipline as this rigid, restrictive thing, but from a neurological standpoint, discipline is a profound form of nervous system regulation. When you tell yourself you're going to do something, and you actually follow through, you build deep predictability and self-trust, and your brain absolutely loves predictability. It creates a massive sense of internal safety. And when your nervous system feels safe, your prefrontal cortex, which is basically the CEO of your brain responsible for deep focus and execution, stays online, instead of shutting down because of stress and anxiety. And this brilliantly illustrates why having a structured start to your day is completely non-negotiable for stabilizing your new identity. Enter the 3Ms routine: movement, mindfulness, and mindset. Let's break down exactly why this sequence is pure neurological magic. First up, movement. This isn't just about fitness, guys. Moving your body literally clears out the lymphatic waste that your brain dumps into your neck overnight. Kinda gross, but fascinating, right? Second, mindfulness. Taking time for meditation or even just quiet processing time is like raking the soil. We massively lack processing time today. Mindfulness allows you to process those unhandled emotions so they don't just turn into permanent, unconscious programming. And finally, mindset. This is where you set your intentions. If mindfulness is raking the soil, mindset is planting the actual seeds. By stating your intentions, you are actively training your perception to filter reality and actually find the good, the opportunities, and the abundance all around you. You are the architect of your own black box. You hold the spray paint. By understanding your default networks, intentionally shifting your identity, hacking your brain's reward pathways, and regulating your nervous system, you are no longer the kitten blind to the vertical stripes of the world. You're in the driver's seat. So I'll leave you with this. What new reality will you construct today? Let that sink in and use these tools to build something absolutely incredible.